Doctor, look.
Stand aside, nurse. I'm Dr. Homebrew.
Stand clear.
Hey, welcome everybody. It's another episode of Dr. Homebrew. And here we are with my co-hosts, Brian and Brian. And
I'm Brian.
Yeah, that's Brian.
Hello.
And we have another Brian. And today we're going to be talking about homebrew. That's what we do. I'm going to be listening to these boys tell me what I'm supposed to be tasting in my homebrew, and then I'm going to tell them how wrong they are. And we're going to argue, and then we're going to knife fight. And that's going to be cool. No, not really. But we do have a good show for you, of course. Before we get to that, I want to thank our sponsor, 5 Star Chemicals. They are the people who are keeping your brewery clean during this lockdown. Now's the time, right? When to really break down your home brewery. Welcome to your home brewery. I'm like Giuliani's expert testimony lady. Do you know that you can break your entire home brewery down? Anyway, break your home brewery down. If you have plastic buckets, take the spigots off. If you have metal buckets, take the spigots off. Do all that kind of stuff. Use PBW, use Star Sand, break all that stuff down. Give it a really good cleaning, and and then by the time we come out of lockdown, which we are in now, you will have a brand new clean brewery thanks to 5 Star Chemicals. So check them out. Go over to their website. Thank them for supporting the show, too. Please just fire them a little email or follow them on social media. They're not one of these companies that post every hour. So, just send them a little message. Slide it in their DMs and say, hey, man, thanks. And that's all you got to do.
It'll make your brewery not only shiny and sparkly, but also suitable to put fermentable liquids in. And JP, you're surprisingly good at that drunk voice. Wow.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I don't know, man.
Do you know what we did with Star Sand yesterday?
I don't want to know because I get the idea you're a freaky guy, Brian. So
no, it was actually nothing. It's very family friendly. I have a little spray bottle of Star Sand, and my partner has these succulents. She's been getting super into like the succulent plants. And there's one that had like this little white spider webby junk on it.
Yep.
And all her friends that do this are like, no, this is nasty. It'll not just kill the plant. It'll spread to everything. You got to throw it out. And I said, I got a spray bottle of Star Sand. And I've heard from people that if you spray it on plants that have different problems, infestations, mold, whatever, it will typically clear it up. And sure enough, here the next day, that stuff was all gone. The plant's healthy.
Really?
It's actually, if the option is throw it out or spray some Star Sand on it, right. Seriously, what do you have to lose? Spray some Star Sand on. And I was always kind of doubtful of this. And it happened. I was like, wow, I was really impressed with how quick it cleared up this nonsense growing on her plant.
Yeah, I mean, it is non-toxic, and I know the one of the, I don't know which one, but one of the Star Sand reps way back in the day was sort of like infamous for going around to homebrew shops like mixing up a non-concentrated standard like pint glass solution of it and then drinking it, like chugging it, and I'm like, even if that's okay, you doing it multiple times is not. It can't be good for you, brother. It really can't. Patrick, you can chime in, man. You don't have to. Patrick is our guest.
Of acids, yeah.
Patrick is our guest for tonight. Patrick, what's going on? You have a comment about this.
Oh, I just after 2 decades of EMS experience, non-toxic is not the same as potable.
You're right, exactly. Like silly putty's non-toxic, but you can't eat a pound of it and expect to be, okay.
Right.
But
yeah, I mean, you've seen what Star Sand. It's great for cleaning, but if you don't wear gloves, it will dry your hands out and stuff.
Sure. Well,
I can only imagine what that does to your stomach lining.
Yeah, and that's what we want it to do. Is we want it to kill all this, bacteria and this mold, and really help like eliminate it and sanitize it properly before, after we clean it out, obviously. But anyway, just be cautious of people, because I hear the story come up from time to time. That's the only reason I bring it up. Be cautious of it. Don't be a guy, well, look, like fun at parties. Watch me what I can do. I can mix chemicals and drink it. Star Sand works great on your brewery and apparently on your succulents. But, be careful with it, of course, because it is a chemical. But 5 Star Chemicals makes the best stuff. They clean and sanitize. They do it all. They're great people. They support the show. So please, like I said, if you can't go out and buy any of their product right now, if you can't get it shipped to you, which I understand, at least send them an email and thank them very much for being on the show. All right, Patrick, welcome officially.
Thank you,
young man.
Appreciate it.
So we have a what is it? A coffee porter.
Yes, sir.
We've got it's a coffee porter.
Coffee porter, and I love porters. I'm a porter head. It's like my first love, maybe my second love. I don't know. I think my first love was oatmeal stout.
That's fair. It's a great option too.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's like your, oatmeal stout was my practice girl for coffee porter, as Doc would say. I wouldn't say that. That's a Doc line. I'm not gonna. But tell me a little bit about this beer. Have you made it before?
Yeah. So this is probably the 7th or 8th batch of this particular base beer. So, based off of the Edmund Fitzgerald Porter, so from Great Lakes Brewing down in Ohio. So that's a Midwest favorite. They do a lot of really great to style beers. So they've got a great Dortmunder, and they've got a bunch of good German styles and that kind of thing. But their Edmund Fitzgerald Porter is kind of the standard here, and so everybody here who loves porter is familiar with that. So kind of did this as a base beer and got comfortable with the recipe, and love coffee. We've got a couple of great coffee roasters here in Grand Rapids, and so figured I'd pair the two.
You just said COVID coffee roaster, and I don't know if you did was like a slip or you meant it.
Yeah, COVID everywhere.
I just want to double check. Like, hey, I thought you guys were into this. I don't know. I mean, just I don't want to inoculate you guys. Perfect. Well, great. I like. I appreciate the attention to brewing the base beer several times. As a guy who's been trying to do that with his oatmeal stout, which is me. How hard is it to not tweak anything, even if you liked the last batch? That's all I do.
Yeah, I think with this one particularly, so I've tried a couple of different coffees to add to it. I've tried a couple of different methodologies for coffee, so different amounts, that kind of thing. So I'm tweaking kind of the coffee addition, rather than the base beer. But I mean, I could make 10 gallons of this, just the base beer, and just enjoy it all winter. So,
nice.
If I'm happy with it, I'll tinker with other stuff.
There you go. That's good. I love it. Well, thank you for sending me a bottle. I know it's not not easy, and especially now, it costs a lot more than normal entry. So I really appreciate it. Brian Shar, I'm going to tap you. The hand of God will tap you, young man, to go first, and I'll give Brian Cooper a rest from going first all the time.
These beers were also very well packaged, by the way. They were very tightly packaged.
Yeah, it was almost like a childproof cap. I was like, what is going on here? Is someone going to break into this?
You're welcome, and I'm sorry.
They arrived intact, and that's all that matters.
There you go.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
Yeah. All right, Shar, go ahead.
I was opening that box up, and my first thought was, oh, my God, my mother sent me beer, because that's pretty much how my mom wraps packages. So, and I love my mom, but oh, my God, that woman, she should open a tape factory. All right, so I really like this beer a lot. Before I start talking about it, though, I have to ask my usual question. Are you in a homebrew club?
I am. So I am a member in good standing of the Brewskitos in Grand Rapids, Michigan. The
Brewskitos, yeah, that is a summer thing in the Great Lakes region.
Everywhere.
What do you have to do to be a member in good standing?
Pay dues.
All right. So you've paid your dues.
Yeah.
I've paid my dues, but the check's in the mail. But
Sounds like a homebrew club.
Little China. Yeah, exactly.
If you want to, look, you can hang out with us. Just give us money.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't care if you brew. I don't care if you ask questions. Just pay us.
Helps also to get a good buzz, probably, if you're in that club.
Yeah. Nicely done, Brian.
It wasn't that good.
And I was in Grand Rapids for NHC a few years ago when it was there. Really enjoyed it, and it's a great beer town. So, yeah, thanks for sending your beer.
Sure.
Sort of going through my first initial observations. This was a 30A, so it's a spice herb vegetable with the light roast coffee added. I assumed that the I guess it's not called robust porter anymore. It's the American porter. I assumed that was the base beer. And for Dr. Homebrew, is that right on there? Does say American Porter? Okay. I paid attention.
He did declare the 28 base, so I appreciated that. I was just
all right.
Very happy to know what.
So the only reason I point that out is not to try to shame you about base beer or whatever. And as Brian's, I just didn't look at the cap as well as I should have. My point is, and not primarily to you, but to the listeners, if you're doing a spice herb vegetable or a fruit beer or anything that involves modification to a base style, always be very clear in the entrance sheets and the paperwork what that base style is, because if you make the judges go looking for it, especially if you might be like the 9th or 10th beer in a flight, and maybe if they're not taking their own bottle caps off, they may end up judging your beer based on a different base style than what you had intended. So just always be clear when you're entering beer. It's again, not primarily directed to you, but directed to our audience. Always be clear when you're entering. The bottle was slightly on the low fill side. Mine was like down at the bottom of that neck. Again, it didn't affect the flavor or anything. It shouldn't affect the score. But again, in a competition situation, when possible, it's best to avoid the low fill. There are people that will pay more attention to that than I think they really should. But if you're trying to set yourself up for success, try to fill that up at least midway up the neck if possible. So that's probably the toughest comments I have for this beer overall. So
I'll take it.
I really like this one.
Haven't even got to the flavor yet, or the aroma, or anything. And it's like, I'm sorry to be so tough on you, but I really need at least another inch in that neck.
Yeah,
he just wants more beer, right?
Exactly. The aroma I thought was really harmonious blend of the coffee and the malt, and I'm not super knowledgeable about different degrees of roasting, and I wonder if the light roast maybe had something to do with why it blended so well in the aroma. The coffee was in balance, and that's really, really difficult to do. Usually, in my experience, coffee just overwhelms beers, or at least tends to balance the beers way toward the coffee side. And this, to me, was extremely, extremely well balanced. No hop aroma. I got low chocolate and roast malt aromas, no esters, no off aromas, 10 out of 12 for aroma. Appearance is 3 out of 3, very clear as much as you can tell in a beer that's this dark, very dark brown in color, almost black. There's a low head that's very persistent, and I presume that my guess in this situation is always the head is low because of the oil from the coffee beans. Flavor. Initially, the flavor was, to me, dark chocolate malt with a low coffee flavor. The coffee flavor kind of comes up to moderate in mid-palate. There's a low bitterness that comes up more into the finish. And the finish itself is long and very pleasant, kind of a low level. It's not an intense, super long finish, but it's a finish that stays with you for a while. Well attenuated. No hop flavor. Might have wanted, this is maybe a little paradoxical, I might have wanted a little more malt flavor, but of course the problem is then the coffee wouldn't be in balance, and I think that the way you have, I'd rather have you keep the balance the way it is. So 15 out of 20 for flavor. Mouthfeel, 5 out of 5. Medium body, low carbonation, no warming. It's, if creamy and astringency are a continuum, it's more on the creamy side. Overall impression, 9 out of 10 for an overall score of 42. This beer really is, I think, the poster child for balance. It's so hard to get in any beers like this, whether it's spice herb, vegetable, fruit, whatever. Balance, I think, is always the toughest thing to execute well. And it's executed really, really well in this beer. I'll be curious later on if you did a tincture or a cold brew, or how you exactly got the coffee in. And don't spoiler Brian here, but I'll be curious how you did that. A little more carbonation would be welcome. Maybe a little bit more hop flavor for the American Porter. The problem is hop flavor is always so difficult for a dark beer. And I think you add coffee, and that just kind of makes the problem exponentially difficult because the C hops, in my experience, don't play well with dark malt. I've had luck with Nugget and Galaxy, but sometimes you've got to really jam a lot of hops in there to get the flavor out of them. And that's fraught with peril, too, because you could end up making it more bitter than you want, or it's a little difficult. To me, that's not a big flaw or even really a flaw. So if I'm thinking about, well, how would you make this better? Maybe having it be a little more like American porter in that standpoint might be valuable. But so overall, 42 out of 50. This is excellent beer. And what's also really great, I drank about half the bottle when I was judging it about 2 hours ago. And I went to open up a new one, but I liked the one that was sitting here at room temperature, about 66 in my kitchen, well enough. I just kept on drinking out of that same bottle. And, a lot of beers, no matter what the style, don't hold up after being out in the kitchen unopened for 2 hours. And this one really did. It's just as good, if not better, to me than it was when I judged it. So
I think it's that
cheers.
coffee. I like room temperature coffee more than I like hot coffee. If it's good coffee. And so for me, I think it is the benefit of, not a benefit, but the testament to the quality of coffee.
Yeah.
That I think is
and
in there.
dark beer tends to hold up better, I think, at room temperature than lighter beers, lagers, what have you. So it's just a fortuitous coincidence that I get to sit here and enjoy more of this great beer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to your point about C hops and dark beers, I tend to agree with you. I think like those earthier, hops, Northern Brewer is, I think, a really good, a favorite of mine to put in oatmeal stout because it just, I don't know, it just works maybe with the darker malts and stuff like that. But the earthiness works with it, and I think that the citrus clashes. Yeah,
and what I think happens is the citrus and then the kind of the fruitiness, and the acidity of the malt combined to make it just too kind of gnarly fruity,
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. It's that certain flavor.
Well, I think with those citrus hops, you need that sweet balance. It's just like making a drink. Yeah. You have your citrus, and then you have your citrus cuts your alcohol, but then you need sugar to cut your citrus.
Yeah.
And so you can't have harsh in there with no sweetness. Anyway,
you sound like a mixologist over there.
Well, I am.
Beer cocktails.
Yeah. All right, Brian Cooper. Let's go.
Right on. Okay. So coffee porter. I made the same note about the low neck. This one was a little higher. It was what third of the way up that long neck. But if you're a good judge, you don't let it color your impressions. No big deal. I did like that you declared the base style exactly. Some people don't do that. And you don't have to say an exact base style either. I think you can declare it as a coffee porter if you enter that style. But if you do want to emulate a specific, like you're emulating a very specific beer that is of a certain style, that's a good idea if it meets that, to name it. So
let me interrupt you real fast, Brian.
Please.
Do you think declaring a style is sort of like putting too fine a point on it in competition? Could you like Patrick enters this and says it's an American stout or American porter, excuse me. Would a judge then be extra hard if that porter didn't meet those guidelines versus just saying it's a coffee porter?
Yeah, if it didn't meet that, they could. Like if the coffee is beating it up, and the porter's not really there, and you can't detect the base style specifically, you might do better to just say porter.
Okay, then it doesn't matter so much. So sometimes that could work against you.
It could. Okay. But if you did a really good job of it, it might, you get both the base style and the special ingredient perfect balance, then it'll benefit.
Okay.
The flip side of that is that if you don't declare the specific kind of porter, and let's say you made the base beer was an American porter, let's say it was hoppy or what have you, but the judges got it in their head that it should be like an English porter, then you might get docked for having it not be enough like an English porter. And you might have judges be more reluctant to score it highly because they're not quite sure what criteria they're supposed to use to judge the beer in terms of the base style.
Okay.
That's the flip side of that.
Okay. Good.
I suppose you could send the same beer to England to be judged and do a competition in America to just declare it as porter and see what they say.
See what
That would
happens.
be a fun experiment.
Yeah.
Of course, I had to travel a lot farther to go.
Yeah, send it to me, and I'll watch the Great British Baking Show while I judge your beer, and then that way it'll sort of anyway. Sorry, Cooper. Thank you for that clarification. Go ahead, please.
Back to just a quick clarification though on hops. Hops can be just about anywhere in an American porter. So they can be low to high in the nose, and the bitterness can be medium to high, and the hop flavors can be low to high. I find that most times they are definitely covered by the darker malts in the beer. They don't come up to where it's IPA high, but it's not insanely high usually. So it would be a fault to me if it was coming out like, oh, that's an IPA with porter. Anyway, I digress. In the nose, I got a lightly ashy, and the porter can have a slightly little burnt edge to it. I got a light burnt quality in the nose. I think I'm getting a little smoother impression on it tonight. For some reason, it hit me a little hard last night. I think it was the last beer I judged last night. Tonight, it's the first we're doing, so a little difference there. Judging order does make a difference. Upon that initial whiff, and then comes coffee, pretty fresh, and I'm getting semi-sweet chocolate. Clean ale fermentation is apparent with light fruity esters coming out alongside some light malty fruitiness. No defects standing out here. It's pretty clean, so that's nice. Appearance-wise, I give it full points. It's a richly dark brown colored beer. Has a head of fine bubbles that hangs above the beer on the sides of the glass. I like the way that it just it clings there, it stays low, but it is persistent. So mostly finer bubbles. The beer seems clear if you look at the corners. It's quite dark, but it's brown, and you can see kind of some garnet highlights through the beer as well, not just at the corners. Flavor wise, it's richly malty. It's got a pretty good sized roast component going on here, with some dark chocolate undertones coming out just above that coffee richness. It's big. It's very flavorful, and the flavors are good. I'm just looking for the style, the American porter with the coffee. And it's almost a little more leaning towards a roastiness like you get in a stout. It doesn't taste like a stout, but there's some stout-like flavors mixed in with everything here. And I'm not sure if I can separate, is that the coffee playing tricks on my taste buds, making it seem more stout-like? Because there is supposed to be coffee here too. Yeah, or is it, really the roast malts coming up pretty high to make those flavors pop like they are? It's a bold beer. There's nothing wimpy about it. It's not super alcoholic. It does have a light coffee and cream kind of quality too, which I like. Heavy on the coffee in that mixture, I guess. But it lets these rich notes are hanging in the aftertaste a little bit, maybe a little bit longer than Brian detected, but to me they stick around. It's a little ashy in the aftertaste, a little lightly burnt, but not in a good way. Almost like imperial stout, but not imperial stout. I don't know. It's like you get that a really good imperial stout, and it just treads that line where it's got a little ash, a little campfire, a little rich, dark goodness in it, and it hangs there. It just pushes to that edge, and then it recedes and lets you enjoy it, take another sip. But I mean, this is obviously not as sweet as that. This one finishes dry appropriately for what we call an American porter, or a robust porter in the olden days. But yeah, it's got a lot of good flavors here. So it's leaning towards a little beefier version of the porter. And I'd love to taste that your local porter there sometime. When I get back to the Midwest, I'll have to look for it. The mouthfeel is medium bodied with medium carbonation. Getting a touch of some malt derived astringency, but it's still it's a little creamy as well, like that coffee and cream thing. It's fairly smooth anyway. So there's a little The astringency is not really harsh. It's just a light little note. There's something a little chalky and kind of biting about it. No obvious warmth. Alcohol seems pretty subdued. Plays nicely. There's some there, but it's not biting or harsh at all. It's really smoothly done. It seems like just a really nice fermentation. Overall impression: this is a well-brewed beer with a lot of a very good balance between the style and the coffee. It is pushing towards that stout-like tendency to me. It's very rich and dry. You could back off the darkest malts a touch and perhaps let that just the balance could be maintained by maybe also reducing the coffee a little bit too if it's a more roasty. I didn't know if it was dark or light roast. I heard Brian say light roast, but I didn't.
Light roast, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I didn't get that anywhere. I didn't see any notes about what kind of coffee that was used. That is also something you could declare on an entry sheet if you did enter it in competition.
That was in the email that you sent us, Brian. That it was light roast.
I don't look. Yeah, I'm good at forgetting things, and I just look at the cap and what style is declared to judge it. So
that's the reading comprehension portion of the exam.
I failed. You could, not sure where all the richness is coming from. Then I would suspect it's probably coming from the malts. So I'll be interested to see what the recipe is and what you did with the darkest malts in this recipe.
I think a lot of it's the coffee. You can get some of this, like depending on the quality of the bean and the roast level and what type of bean, the region it's from. You can get that almost creaminess that can come out like that. Not creamy.
If I was asked to guess, I would say this is a dark roast coffee, though. It just tastes to me richer than.
Yeah, I guess like medium dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't go darker than that.
So maybe it could be also with the treatment, the way it was put in, and things that brought some of those flavors up more. So because I agree, it is definitely there's some coming from the coffee, there's some coming from the malts in there, and it is a nice balance. So I don't know. It's rich, roasty, and coffee, and a lot of chocolate-like notes in it too. So it's a really enjoyable beer. For style, it came off a little too stout-like, so I landed at a 36 on it. I thought it was very good, towards the high end of very good, towards excellent almost. And I would just, for my taste and for American Porter 20A, I would pull back some of those most richly roasty flavors in it. I don't know. What do you think, JP?
Got it. That's helpful.
Yeah, I would like to hear the recipe because I have some thoughts on it as well. So let's get to the recipe, Patrick. What did you give it, Cooper? I'm sorry.
36.
36. Okay, Patrick, give us your recipe, please.
Yeah, so just to touch kind of what on Char was saying about coffee. So this one's a light roast. It's a Ethiopian single origin. From a local roaster here, so it's from the Sidamo region. If people out there,
Ethiopian Sidamo is one of the top five.
Yes,
region.
It's phenomenal coffee.
It's
like my daily drinker, for mornings and whatnot. So what I like about this is that it's very chocolate forward, like milk chocolate forward. The coffee is very floral, a lot of like raspberry, blueberry kind of characters, and so in kind of trying a bunch of their coffees, I felt like that partnered well with the chocolate character, and some of that like berry character goes well with some of the earthy hops and that kind of thing. So, and I'll touch on coffee, I guess, at the end of the recipe, like how I added it, but I made a little change here, and I think I'll probably back it up a bit. But so this was a 6-gallon batch. And actually this one I wound up splitting, and I did half with this light roast coffee and then half with a cinnamon hazelnut flavored coffee from the same roaster. And I meant to send you all a bottle, and then we drank it all over Thanksgiving. So because it was really good. So that one will definitely, next time I think I'm going to do a 10-gallon batch and split it and do full kegs of both, because they both turn out great. So no water treatment for this one. Municipal water here in Grand Rapids is out of Lake Michigan, so it's really good for amber through like porter stout styles. We'll add sulfate for IPAs, or if I do a pilsner or whatever, I'll go to RO. But for these like medium, SRM or darker, it's great just out of the tap, and a little bit of Campton to take care of chlorine, and that's about it. So malt bill, 10 pounds or 85% of 2-row, 12 ounces or 6.4% of C60, 8 ounces, 4.3% of black patent malt. So I think that may be where a little bit of that roasty, ashy character. Yeah. And then 8 ounces or 4.3% of chocolate malt. And that's kind of the basic mash bill that I've had for this recipe since kind of building it off of that Edmund Fitzgerald, and doing some like homebrew talk and some other forum things. And this is kind of what what I was able to put together for that. As far as the hops go, good call, JP, on the Northern Brewer. So 60 minutes was Northern Brewer, 20 grams for about 24 IBUs.
I'm telling you.
30 minutes was 23 grams of Fuggle for about 9.4 IBUs.
That's a good one.
And then 10-minute was 25 grams of Cascade for about 6.5 IBUs. Okay. So this one actually was just a single package of the Safale USO5. Normally I'll do starters and all that kind of stuff, but my main fermenter in my like temperature controlled, fermentation chamber was busy on the Doppelbock that I also sent you guys. So this was just in a carboy in the basement and just sprinkle the packet of yeast in there and just let it go. So my basement's pretty good temperature wise. So it's like 66 in the winter and 68 in the summer. So it's good for ales and all of that.
Great.
And then as far as the coffee goes, so in this case, as far as starting gravity was 1064 and final gravity was 1014. So it wound up about 6.5%. And then as far as the coffee goes, so this particular one, so I'll do like a coarse grind, steep generally overnight in a French press, and then the next morning plunge that down, put that in the keg, and then rack the beer on top of it. And that's what I've done in kind of every iteration of this particular beer. Of interest for this one, the timing was off. So normally I'll make the coffee in the evening and I'll keg it in the morning. So like Friday night into Saturday. In this case, the coffee sat for like 36 hours. And so I think maybe that's where some of that extra like astringency may come from, is because it sat, the water sat with the coffee beans for much longer than I would normally do. So I think in the future, I'll back that up and do that 12-hour steep instead of longer. Because I know doing research on kind of how people add coffee, people do it, put it in the boil or put it in the fermenter or do whatever. And it's kind of the longer contact time, the more of that astringency you make it out of those beans. So I get kind of a lingering astringency on the end of this that's sort of abnormal for the recipe. So I'm wondering if maybe that sort of altered approach to the coffee or just schedule wise, may have impacted that.
It was all cold brew. There was no heat on the coffee, right?
Yeah, so I heat the water up to like 170 and hold it there, cool it to about 135, and then put it over the beans and immediately in the fridge.
Cool.
Interesting.
Have you ever played around with pale chocolate malt?
I haven't. I know that's one of JP's favorites.
That was
just from.
I have two suggestions. That was definitely one of them. And really, it was a leading from. Do you like the roast level in this? Because if you do, then don't worry about it.
Yeah. So in this one, I feel like in this batch the roast is more apparent to me, and so I'm not sure how much to attribute to the coffee and maybe how much to attribute to that black patent. But pale chocolate's an interesting suggestion. And I didn't know for like the black patent, is there a good sub to kind of get that roasty character without going to ashy, like debittered, or I've personally played around like
this is going to sound, very homebrew like, but the reason my oatmeal stout doesn't score well in competitions is because I don't like that roasty quality in it, right? And so I try to limit the amount of that. So I don't have any black roasted barley in it, for example. So you sort of need that ashiness. You sort of not ashiness, but you sort of need that bitter malt thing. But I've tried like the debittered and try to substitute it, and nothing sort of compares to you, but also to Black Patent. It just sort of is its own thing. That's my opinion on it. I do think you need some of it. I would think that you could use pale chocolate. Pale chocolate will reduce some of the acridness too, but it will also throw a more vaguely chocolate-esque note to your beer. A lot of people think it doesn't, but for me, what I taste in the differentiation between like my oatmeal stouts with chocolate and pale chocolate is it does have this sort of creamy hint of a chocolate thing. So make sure you're using beans that you work with. That work well
like
with
a
that.
cocoa bean like impression, but
yeah,
not the burnt part.
No, it's not like a Hershey bar or whatever, but there is a thing to it, and that's just that's what it is. My other suggestion would be I would love to see something. Maybe it goes back to what Shar was saying. Something a little more zhuzh in the body. So maybe you take your crystal malt, which was what, crystal 40, you said.
60.
Maybe you do a blend. Maybe you take a portion of that and do like a 20 or a 40 and a 60 or something like that, just to goose it. I just want a little bit more. I think the amount of coffee you have in there is great. I wouldn't touch it. I would lock that in. But if you need to maybe massage it around some of the more ingredients, I think the porter just needs just a little bit. You're like 5% away from me from being like, fuck, this is amazing. You know what I mean? Like I would have easily given this a 40, 42. Yeah.
And you know what? I don't want to beat this dead horse too much, but in my stout, I haven't made it for a couple of years for a variety of reasons, but for 20 years I made a Christmas stout every year. And about 7 or 8 years back, I took the Black Patent malt out of my stout and probably drove my stout closer to being a porter in reality. But for a porter, if you're going to use Black Patent malt, maybe use a quarter of that. Consider just taking that out altogether. And if you want that roast character, I think JP was talking about this a little bit, go with a little bit of roast barley or something, because I just don't like the character that the Black Patent malt gives.
I don't like black roasted barley. Like I took black roasted barley out of my oatmeal stout years ago.
Yeah. That would make it more stout-like too. To me, the roasted barley is such a key element of like the Irish stout and all of it. But the Black Patent, you could maybe instead of that just back it off a little bit. But I would lean towards not making as many changes. I like some of the suggestions. I like, the playing with the crystal a little bit.
Yeah,
I like it dry though. I don't think if you want to put a little more sweetness in here, that would be a style preference thing to me.
Yes,
if you like more of a an English or UK kind of porter, something with a little more sweetness to it, then you'll be happy with that. But if you like the American porter, it's going to be nice and dry, and it's going to have about that 6.5% alcohol and be. Have some beefiness, and it dries right out, and you want another sip.
Yeah, well, and so I guess that goes into what the differentiation is between dryness and lack of proper mouthfeel. And I don't mean to say proper as in it's improper. I mean to say that's what I think I need more a little bit of. And I thought just a couple percentage change in a crystal charge might do that without really impacting the perceived sweetness overall.
I think just pulling back the darkest richness is going to let what's already there shine out a little more, and it will have that middle, and if you use the pale chocolate, to me, it does bring out that middle of the equalizer.
So maybe you try that
flavor.
first. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What's the ABV on this again, Patrick, before I finish
about
the bottle?
6.5.
Damn, brother. All right. Well, I'm just going to finish the bottle because it's really good. I like it a lot.
It's very tasty beer, yeah.
So I built this recipe before we switched from robust to American porter. And so one of the questions I had is kind of like, is there big difference? So going from the old guidelines to the new guidelines, Is there a broad differentiation between kind of those two styles, or are they essentially interchangeable?
I think it's mostly a name change kind of thing. They went towards international styles, and they brought in things from Czech Republic and different places, and kind of tended to organize things more by geography than by just all the porters together, all the stouts together, kind of a thing in the 2015 guidelines. So organizationally, that's just what they did, and they renamed some things as they did it. I don't know all the thought that went into it. That's just what I think might have happened. It's pretty close. The styles to me are pretty close to each other.
Someone in the chat, Thomas, is saying there's a blog on porters on Simpson's Malt page in the UK for recipes. So if you're looking to maybe go like an English route, I mean, maybe there's American recipes too, but just to get a little more input. I don't think
Simpsons would stoop to that.
I think it's great, and and letting it sit and not having a sip, letting whatever's in my mouth sort of like get stale or whatever. I do see what you were saying a little bit, Patrick, about there is that bitter thing at the end that sits in your mouth. I didn't get it before. You were saying it, and I was like, I think this guy's crazy, but I do sort of get it. So I guess then that's the question, and we'll let you go here in a second because we are sort of like belaboring the point now. But what do you when you have a recipe like this and you want to dial in, what do you do? We've always talked on the show about making one change and then seeing how that goes. But if you had the coffee on the water too long, do you then make the same recipe but do the coffee in the normal time? And then if you need to change it, and it seems like a lot of work, what are you going to do?
I'm going to make like 3 changes at once because that's how I roll.
Yes, because you're a home brewer. Thank you.
I'm going to go back to the old way of doing the coffee. I'm going to swap for pale chocolate.
Okay.
Actually, I'll probably just do those 2 the next time.
I just fucking turn it into an IPA, dude. Who cares? Yeah, at that point.
I'm gonna dry hop it. It's going to be just for you, JP, a hazy coffee porter.
Oh my god, I would love that so much.
Wet hop it too, man.
Please.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then pumpkin spice it.
I did have a question on the hops. So you guys mentioned that a little bit of extra hop character, may be useful for the base style. So there is some Cascade late, 10 minutes left in the boil. Is it worth looking at, Shar, you were saying something about like Galaxy. Is it worth looking at something like a little amount in a Whirlpool, or go old world and something kind of earthy and fruity that might pair with that coffee? Like, what do you think?
That's the last thing you ought to change in this beer. Okay. I think. I think that's like, it's like adjusting your water when you're learning how to homebrew, right? That's the last thing you need to kind of worry about is how to adjust your water. The last thing this is a really good beer the way it is. And maybe tweaking the hops is in my mind, the last thing you do after you kind of tweak the malt bill a little bit. I think JP's right. I mean, you're like 5%. And for those of you who are listening to the podcast in the future, JP gave me this really startled and surprised look on Zoom. It's, I think getting that last bit of that malt bill right and getting that steeping time down in the coffee gets you 99% of where you want to be with this beer.
Since neither one of us noticed it being American hops, none of us did. Yeah. JP called out the Northern Brewer, right? But none of us got. I mean, I got more of an Englishy type hop character, and it's backgroundy. It's not too intense in your face. It's just enough where it fits a nice, robust porter style.
Well, and I didn't even call Northern Brewer because I tasted it or because I thought it was in there. I just thought that's just a hop that I use, and that works well. So I'm cooler than I am, I guess.
I looked up a couple of clone recipes for the Edmund Fitzgerald, and both of them did use roasted barley, interestingly. One of them had just roasted barley, and one of them had it with black patent. I don't know if they released their recipe ever, but you could.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of. This was just kind of a conglomeration of different forums and Facebook and whatever else. But I mean, at this point, it's sort of departed into its own beast. So I'm happy to continue to tweak it. You know.
Yeah. The beer is a classic commercial example of the style. So they're doing something right there.
Nice. They're doing lots of things right. If you get out that way and can find some, it's phenomenal.
I mean,
it's like the Black Butte of that region, right?
Yeah,
right. Exactly.
I mean, if you really want to emulate it, it sounds like you've sort of departed from that. It was a good jumping off point, but I mean, you might even just email it over to them and just ask.
Yeah.
How close
How
am
close
I?
am I?
Because people will do that. Well, Patrick, if there's nothing else, we're going to let you go because we've
Awesome.
hung on to you for probably too long.
Well, I appreciate it,
Yeah.
guys. Thank you very much for the input.
Yeah, thanks,
was
man.
fun.
I'll rebrew this and get it back to you guys.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Excellent.
Thanks,
Yeah,
man.
thanks for the beer, Patrick.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot,
Thank
guys.
you so much.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come right back, and we're going to drink some more beer. It's Dr. Homebrew. Hang on. We'll be right back.
Now, back to the examination.
Hey, everybody. What's going on? Thanks a lot for sticking with us. It's Dr. Homebrew. We are now joined by Nate. Nate, how you doing, man?
Great. How are you guys doing?
Not too shabby. Not too shabby. You're cracking a beer. I see. Look at that. Good job. And what beer do we have from Nate, Brian Cooper?
We have a blueberry cream ale.
Blueberry cream ale.
Yeah.
Oh,
Judging
man.
it as a 29A fruit beer. With blueberries. And
Nice.
yeah.
Okay, perfect. That sounds good. I'm assuming you have one for me.
So
I'll-
1C.
I'll come and
I
get
do
it.
have one out
Good.
right over there.
All
Yeah.
right. I got to
We
come
didn't
and
have
get
time to get it to you, actually
No.
drive it to you yet, but
Yeah,
we'll get
it's
it to you.
been, man, working from home. It's like, doing the shows from the studio is one thing because we just have to be there, and you get a little bit of time to sit and judge. But when you're working from home now, suddenly, and you guys all know this, I'm not telling anybody anything they don't know, but suddenly you have more shit to do. Like you're just suddenly busier somehow, and you're like, well, how does this happen? What's going on?
Blessing and a curse. at the
Yeah,
same
for
time.
sure. So anyway, I apologize, Nate. I won't be partaking in the beer, but I'll definitely be listening. So, Brian Cooper, why don't you start out? Oh, actually, no, I'm sorry, Nate. Have you brewed this before?
I have not. This is my first time.
See, okay, good. And this is why I like this. I like people who are just doing something for the first time and want some feedback. And that's you're just looking for like recipe feedback, or do you taste something funky?
Just with the addition of some fruit in there, how to classify that? Does that make sense? The 29A, and then just some general feedback as far as what the recipe is like and the flavor profile and stuff. So
Okay, perfect. All right, Cooper, go for it.
Yeah, it has a homebrew label, homebrew entry label on it here, the bottle ID form, and it does declare 1C as the category
1C. Sorry.
base for the base style, obviously. So that's good. That is a cream ale. Anyway, this one I didn't check. This one the past actually no, this one was a little higher fill. The one I judged last night was a little bit lower fill as well. Like the first one we did tonight, but it was just above the shoulder of the bottle on one of them. I think I got the last beer out of the keg maybe or something, or the one that foamed over and gave you trouble that night. Anyway, it was cool when I opened the bottle, and there's too much else going on right now. I'm not getting it. But when I first opened the bottle, I got from this distance, I got an initial whiff of blueberry emanating just from the just uncapped bottle. I got a bit of fresh berry, and it popped out that far from me. These volatiles, I don't know if they were just built up in the neck or what it was, but they jumped out at me literally, and they were there, and then they were gone. And maybe that's kind of how blueberry is in a beer, because the things that make you taste blueberry are maybe a little fleeting and hard to keep around in a beer. So, but that was nice. They got a nice little fresh berry, and then in the actual aroma of the beer, it's still there. It just seems less. It's a low level. It seems it's fairly clean, but it's also underneath that it's faintly malty, with bread-like undertones, some low fruity esters. There's no hops obvious at all here. Clean, no DMS or diacetyl. Then the fruit, I'm getting a slight kind of pith-like seedy quality in the nose. Also, there's no obvious corn to me here. So, for a cream ale, this a corn-like flavor we kind of expected, but appearance-wise, it's amber-colored beer, kind of a light amber with the berries give it kind of this reddish brown tinge of the kind of the meat of the berry, the interior of that blueberry. Has a low whitish head. It recedes pretty soon after pouring. Mostly finer bubbles here, and they're, you know, as I drink it, they're rising to create kind of a hint of a collar. It faded pretty fast, and this one's sticking around a little bit. Maybe there's a little bottle variation too, though, because this one it seems to be holding up the head a little better than last night, or maybe I was just slow ass at judging. I don't know. There's a slight haze to the beer, but not too bad. You can see through it ish. Flavor wise, I'm getting a pretty initial maltiness coming across with the blueberry. I felt like I was getting just a bit of some oxidation in there, and a low fruity berry-like flavors expressed with they express themselves with a very slight edge of some little tartness to them, which is not nice. It's not overtly tangy. It's not anything bad. It's just a little tart edge, but it's not like the beer went sour or anything. So just like it's delicate. There's like that fruit, and it's not like screaming blueberry to me, but there's a little berry-like thing and a kind of a meat of the berry kind of thing, like the interior of the berry, less than the skins and the flavor. Low bitterness with only the faintest bit of a kind of an earthy floral hop flavor. Mostly malt balance to me, with the fruit kind of in tandem there. The fruit plays nicely with the malt that's there. But I'd say it's maybe a little strongly malty for the style to me. I don't know if the color is giving me that impression. If this, the base recipe, it may be a nice light yellow color when you add the berries, and that's what makes it go to this color. But you can't help but let it color your impressions, maybe. But I'm getting either the berry flavors are also making it taste more malty with that, or there's some oxidation that's giving it a little edge there. But the fermentation, everything seems clean. The character of that is good. There's a little bit of alcohol detectable here. It's not super alcoholic. I would say it finishes kind of semi-sweet, or at least the impression of the berry makes it seem such. It's kind of a bold beer for a lawnmower cream ale, altogether. And it doesn't seem like just the berries doing that to me. I would expect less character, less bold beer overall, and I would kind of want it to be in balance, just that refreshing base style, cleaning off the tongue, and leaving a nice aftertaste of berry. I will tell you, it's really hard to get a good blueberry flavor in a beer. So the mouthfeel was medium to almost giving the impression of slightly fuller bodied, and the sample I had last night was nearly flat by the time I got to judging the mouthfeel. This one has a little bit more left in it, and it's a little bit better. It's making the flavors pop a little bit better. But it just the one I had when I initially judged it was just not as refreshing as that style demands. So I felt like I got a little bit of a slight warming quality in the back of the throat, late palate, but it's not strong. It's just there's a little bit of alcohol there. And no astringency. There's no biting quality to it. The one I had last night fell a bit flat there with the lack of carbonation. This one seems a little spritzier. It seems like I'm getting some bottle variation. I don't know where Brian landed with his, but it should just be a lighter overall impression. So it's a good beer. It's a clean beer. The fermentation seems like it went well. There are no off flavors that I can really detect in here. It's mostly kind of balance and style issues that I'm gonna harp about, but not really. Like it's a good beer. It's a pleasant beer to drink. Just lightly fruity berry qualities in there, kind of almost nondescript. But if that initial whiff came out and stayed somehow, that that jumped out at me from the bottle. That would be nice, but it didn't. It kind of misses the mark to me when it comes to saying, is this a cream ale or is this something richer and maltier? It's hard to just to pick it out as a cream ale by style. So that's where I would, I'm making a fruit beer with cream ale and blueberry. Like, okay, where's the cream ale? It doesn't hit that as well to me as it could. And this one, I'm not getting a lot of any papery really in this one. So I think the one last night might have been, maybe there was some bottle oxidation going on, and that made me score it a little lower, and it didn't have as much spritziness. So I would still recommend adding more carbonation into this one. They both need a little more CO2 to push the flavors and make it refreshing, and just it should be a pretty a spritzy beer. That's going to help it bringing up kind of the corn-like quality, and it's going to aid in getting the style flavor, the flavor that you want the style to come out, and the aroma. I'm not getting any real corn-like in it. It could be that it's just buried a little bit behind the berry, and it wasn't very strong to start with, maybe. But I don't know what you could do to get a really, I don't know what kind of fruit you put in it, but if you might have to find some cheats to get the blueberry flavor to come out more, and find a really high quality puree, or even some kind of an extract that just has that blueberry essence that really makes, without making it candy like or fake tasting somehow, blend it with what's there to make it work. I don't know.
Yeah. And we've talked about that before too.
Yeah.
Like there's certain fruits that are hard to use. Blueberries are, I think, the top. Watermelon's hard. Strawberries are hard too.
Strawberry, yeah.
They're fruits that you don't think of, because when you're eating, you're like, oh, this is what it is. This is what I want to emulate. But I think that some of those you do have to supplement with an extract or something like that. I don't know. But so anyway, I'm sorry.
I'm landing it around a 27 on the beer, but I would probably give this one a little higher 20s, because it's a little bit better than the sample I had last night to me. And
so
it
what?
Could be
20,
a temperature thing too, but yeah.
So
28,
what?
29.
28. Let's call it 29.
Let's say 29.
Yep.
Right here, right
there
now.
you go, Nate. That's right. I got you 2 extra points, brother.
Yeah.
If you ever need me in the negotiation room,
there wasn't a lot to dislike here. It's just I wanted the style, and I wanted blueberry. Yeah. And it was hard to get at either one.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like that too. I think that was I got that impression from the feedback, and I think that's how you know it's good feedback, right? Because it's like, when not drinking the beer, I felt like you were struggling to find a zone to land in.
And I'm not a big fruit beer fan, but I could drink this. It's not offensive at all to me. It's tasty.
It sounds like it
goes down pretty smooth.
Yeah. All right, Brian Shar. I'm drinking a Celebration, so don't mind me.
I have Celebration in my fridge.
Hell yeah, brother.
So I judged this. Nate, you've been on the show before, but for people that might be listening for the first time or to the archives, are you in a homebrew club?
Yes, sir, I am. I'm in the Rapid River Mash Masters in central Wisconsin here, just outside of Wisconsin Rapids.
Nice.
The RRMMs, dude.
Exactly. Is that near like Wausau, Stevens Point area?
Uh-oh.
Exactly.
Here we go.
Pretty close to Stevens Point. I live near Stevens Point and work near Wisconsin Rapids. So, yep.
The cashier.
Nice. I went to high school in Pulaski, right outside of Green Bay.
The cashier that I met at the shopping mall, she had a granddaughter who wrote a letter to someone that she knew from the library that grew up in Polinsky Point or whatever.
I used to live in a van down at the river. Yeah.
Yeah, your accent changes every time you say that. So,
yeah, if you've been down 29 to Green Bay, you passed the turnoff to Pulaski that I used to. But anyway,
that used to solicit truckers at, or what? I mean,
yeah, there you go. The trucks. There's a really nice glory hole down there, and you know how that goes. At the truck stop. So
yeah.
about that.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. So there's judge this is a 29A fruit beer, base beer, of course, being the cream ale. The aroma, just like I largely echo what Brian said. The aroma is when you opened up that bottle, and that bottle was 2-3 feet away from my nose, it was like my mom used to make these Betty Crocker blueberry muffins, and they were really good. And they had like the little sugar and the whatever on top, and it smelled just like hot Betty Crocker blueberry muffins right out of that bottle, identical. It's like, man, I love those muffins. I want to drink this beer. It was really pleasant, really great. As it warmed up, it's like Brian was talking about, after like a minute, maybe 30 seconds, that had blown off and that was gone. And what I got something that, and this is, I opened the second bottle just in case there was some bottle variation, and I got it more as it warmed up, but it's still present in this one. That aroma goes away largely, and I get something that's almost metallic. And afterwards, you can tell us your recipe. I want to hear all about it. But as Brian was speculating, I think either it's probably the skins and the seeds of the blueberries, or if you use something like an extract, maybe it's something in that extract that kind of came across that way. But that's kind of the perception that I had. Don't get hops, malt, really anything other than the blueberry and this little bit of an odd after aroma, which just dominate the aromas. That's 6 out of 12. Appearance 3 out of 3. You get kind of an amber with a pinkish purple tint. It looks like there's blueberries in here. It looks really cool. I like the color. Crystal clear. The head's low and persistent, so 3 out of 3. The flavor, similar to the aroma, the flavor initially is this very dominant blueberry. I get something mid-palate that I kind of struggled to identify that, to me, I kind of place in that same category as that kind of metallic-ish aroma that I got after the initial aroma blew off. The bitterness comes up to balance mid-palate. The finish is long. Blueberry dominates the whole thing. There's really no malt flavor, or there's no hop flavor at all. Balance is definitely to fruit. So give it 10 out of 20 for flavor. Mouthfeel, I get kind of a full mouthfeel in mid-palate that is like a lot more than I expected in a cream ale, but it's not all the way through. It's kind of an odd thing where it starts off kind of light in body, then my mouth feels like it's filling up, and then that goes away, before or right after you swallow that sip. Medium low body, medium carbonation, maybe even low carbonation, a little lower than expected for this style. No warming, no astringency, gave it 4 out of 5 for mouthfeel. Overall impression, I gave it 5 out of 10 for a total of 28. I love that this beer is initially just like those blueberry muffins that I love so much. But that, having said that, for a fruit beer, spice herb, vegetable beer, wood-aged beer, the guideline, as far as the guidelines say, balance is really the key thing. And I suspect that you may have chosen cream ale as a base for this because it's kind of there's not a lot to a cream ale, and it gives a canvas for blueberry to really shine and stand out. And if that's what you like to drink and you want to make because that's what you like and your friends and family like, then go for it. I think that's great. But the problem from a competition standpoint is that the blueberry just blows out every aspect of that base beer. Plus, there is something just kind of weird in the aroma and the flavor in the middle after that really intense blueberry goes away. Again, I echo what Brian says, and I think we might be able to give you maybe a little better diagnosis after we hear your recipe and how you got the blueberry flavor in. So thanks for sharing. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Thanks for looking back so far, guys. Yeah. Well, I'll kind of get into my recipe here a little bit. So
yeah.
So just 9 pounds of grain for a 5-gallon batch here. So it's about 77% two-row, and then a pound of flaked maize. I threw a little bit of honey malt, so it's about 8%, and then just a couple ounces of Belgian biscuit in there. So not sure if that's kind of those last two are adding to some of that malt feel or that more in-depth flavors. Yeah. Mine's been sitting out for maybe an hour and a half here, and I picked up a little bit of corn initially, off the first couple of sips, but that kind of went away. And my idea here was just, I didn't want to blow the blueberries out of the water with the cream ale. I wanted to try to balance it, but it was super hard. And I had some frozen blueberries. I had like a 3-pound frozen sack there that I wound up putting through like a sous vide to basically pasteurize it and kind of, break those up. It seems like once you freeze fruit and then thaw it out, it really helps break those fruits up and really allows the exchange of liquid between the berries to work really well.
So you sous vide it. That's really smart, because that way you're not going to overcook them. Yeah, that's really great.
That's a good idea.
That's a cool idea, man.
Yep, that's why I try to do. Keep it like 130, 135 for like 3 or 4 hours, so enough time to pasteurize them, but not enough temperature to really, get some of that effect in and really cook them. So I know sometimes you get some of that. I think Cooper mentioned some pithy flavor. Maybe there's some of that with the skins in there, so to speak. But one thing that I didn't. It always seems like you lose a lot of that blueberry. So in the primary, I put those like 3 pounds of blueberries in at the end of the primary, and it just seems like through fermentation you lose a lot of the berry characteristics. That's what I always find. I mean, I don't do a lot of berry stuff, but I've played around with some cranberries and blueberries and other things, and it just seemed like fermentation takes all that fruitiness away. So I always seem to, in a secondary or right before kegging, use a little bit of flavoring, and typically the amaretti stuff is usually a really good. Provides a nice flavor and some nice color to it. I think the frozen berries, once they were cooked back in, provide a lot of the color, because it was a very pale beer originally, and then adding those berries kind of gave it that golden or reddish kind of hue to it, or amber color to it. So I think that's where a lot of the color is coming from. And then again, just adding a little bit of that amaretti syrup or puree back to it. And one thing I did bump up to, and maybe this is some of that odd flavor that you guys are picking up on, I don't want it to be very sweet, but what I was trying to get is some sweetness to kind of help that blueberry profile without being overly blueberry, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. So I added some wine stabilizer. So I do some wines here and there. So I added a couple ounces of that. So it's basically just a stabilized sugar, basically, that doesn't ferment or keeps killing the yeast in there. So maybe there's an off flavor or an odd flavor that you're picking up with that. And again, what I was trying to do is just provide a little bit of sweetness to pump up those blueberries without bringing too much necessarily blueberry characteristic. Because what I was going for is trying to have that balance between some of that corn being in there, but having some berry there. And again, just kind of playing around and messing around with my first time making this, and again trying to do something different with just a cream ale and seeing if I could try to achieve some kind of balance there. And I think I missed the mark a little bit, maybe overpowered a little bit too much with the blueberries, and maybe when I'm going a little heavy handed with that puree at the end. But I always try to do it in steps, so it's, do the blueberries and then take a sample and wait 3 or 4 days, kind of let it mellow out, or let everything, the adjuncts kind of blend, and then maybe add 1 or 2 ounces of that puree, and maybe I just added a little bit too much of that blueberry flavor in there, and could have dialed that back some, and maybe add a little more corn to the recipe. I don't know, to maybe make that a little more of a cream ale style.
That might help you there, and maybe reducing the wine stabilizer might be what's giving us that impression of fullness and body that we're getting, that's maybe detracting a little bit. And I don't know if it's drier and if it has less of that sweetness, it's going to play a little differently, but I don't think it would be bad. I think there's a lot of factors going on here. What were we going to say, Brian?
Yeah, sorry. I think that, to me, when you said honey malt, that was like, oh, that's that aroma and that flavor that I don't like. Is that I hate honey malt. It's a personal preference. I really hate honey malt a lot, and that's that kind of. And you said that, I'm like, that's probably 80% of what that is.
Honey malt is basically good. You sprinkle it on your yogurt in the morning. It's great. I used to do that at More Beer, man. We used to grab a handful of honey malt, eat it up. Tastes good. But in beer,
you should get some peated malt and some honey malt and some special bee and just jam that all together and make a shit sandwich out of that.
I used to put honey malt in my porter.
Yeah.
And then you take it out, it's like, it's a lot better. Yeah. But it works in certain places. Like it was in 805 for a long time.
Yeah. In a dark beer, or used by Matt Brynelson, it's probably great. used by
Nate.
anyone else and in anything else,
but
is probably not a
Nate.
good idea.
Yeah, that's what you're saying.
or me, or you.
Yeah.
But,
And I think too that the honey-like character is possibly what's throwing me towards thinking, is there oxidation here? Because it wasn't overt. It was like there was something there that just tastes a little. And when malt starts to go oxidized, it gets that some of those honey-like flavors before it goes to paper and cardboard.
Yep.
So that's
another reason not to use it, man. You're exactly right.
There's a place for it. I just maybe not in this beer. I'd bring up the maize and drop that back or off.
Yeah. And like Nate, I think that to me, in terms of adjusting things, like the last thing I would try to adjust is trying to dial back the blueberries, because that's like really the pleasant thing about this beer is the blueberry character. And yes, it is out of balance, and yes, it's too much. But typically honey malt isn't the thing that's going to make an appearance in a cream ale. And if you want something that's going to give you more sweetness, I mean, what's a thing that's sweet? Corn. Corn is really sweet. And it's hard to, having said that, I mean, I've had corn ice cream, there's there's desserts you can have with corn like that. You go to what's that restaurant that has the really good corn.
Where are you right now? Where are you? What galaxy are you?
I'm at home.
Okay. All right.
But
I think that's, corn does have sweetness, right?
Yes.
It can be sweet.
Well, that's why
it dries out in a beer. It's an adjunct.
Yeah.
I love you, Brian Shaw.
yeah.
I'm just saying.
I know. I'm in my own galaxy right now.
Sometimes you just go to outer space and you just go.
Yes.
But that's what we love about you.
But my point is, I mean, blueberry the blueberry ratio is probably the last thing that I would look at trying to fix in this beer.
I like that you used frozen berries, and that's a good way to go too, because if you use fresh berries, they're usually not picked while they're ripe. They're going to be sitting in a grocery store ripening, and you'll get them. You might get less of get more of an underripe flavor to the beer. The flavor that is there, it doesn't seem underripe or green. It's a good, ripened fruit flavor, and you can tell. If I had to guess, I would say that it's definitely real fruit in there, and I'm glad you did use real fruit along with you. So you used some puree, and did you also use some amaretti or no?
I did use some amaretti, at the end. So, and the frozen berries were originally fresh, and then they were frozen, and then they thawed out. But then I did use the amaretti to kind of pump up that flavor a little bit.
Okay, so they were store bought, but I mean, freezing breaks up the cell structure of the berries, so that helps bring things out, and that the treatment you did to them with the sous vide doesn't seem bad either. So the treatment of the fruit seems good. Maybe you might just buy some frozen berries and try it that way instead of taking ripened berries that were frozen separately. I don't know, but just to get any way to get more of a richer, fuller fruit flavor in there is going to help, fuller berry flavor. But it's good. I know how hard it is to do this, so I hate to bag on the beer at all. It's really enjoyable otherwise. So
yeah, for sure. Well, and for your first time, Nate, what do you think about the feedback? Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it?
No, I agree with the feedback wholeheartedly. So it makes a lot of sense. And I don't do a lot of beers twice, especially in a short amount of time, but I might try to do this one again just to see if I can improve that score a little bit, and maybe I'll send it off to you guys.
Yeah, well,
that'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be great. If you don't do it within a year, we execute you. That's kind of the fine print that we don't talk about. But you need to get that score up. You need to be. This is a homebrew version of Black Mirror. You know what I mean? So it's anyway.
The ring, unless you can get someone else to brew a recipe for us in the next 3 days.
Yeah, or just this is your social contract. You need to maintain a minimum score of 30, and if you have an opportunity to raise it up, if you can't, that's it.
JP crawls up out of a well and chops your head off.
That's right. I crawl up out of your ass, and I go, "What are you doing?" No. Well, do you have any questions?
People improve their beer.
Yeah. Do you have any specific questions for the guys, Nate? Do you have anything else?
I don't know. Thanks for the feedback, guys. I really appreciate it. So
cool.
You can really simplify that malt bill. 2-row flake maize. Boom.
That's it.
Maybe up the maize.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like you just pulled a home brewer, which is what we all do. And I say that, and it's more of an endearing term. It's like when I was homebrew, I do it all the time. I do it all the time.
More of this.
A little more of this.
This is gonna.
You go in. I want to do because you see all the grain. And you go, well, shit. I could really, I could really soup this up. You're like a fucking mechanic in that homebrew shop. You're like, well, we can just bore the headers out, or I don't know what that means, but that's what you could do. And that's I think the equivalent of putting honey malt in your cream ale. It's like I could really bore the headers out of this motherfucker. So yeah, simpler is definitely better. Try it again, please, and send it to us. I'm interested to try it.
Yeah. Most pro brewers do not use the kitchen sink approach. They really don't.
Yeah. No. But you know what? Some of them should. I'm going to be honest right now.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, if that's it, Nate, we'll let you split, man. There you go. All right. Thanks, brother. Take it easy.
Go pack, yeah.
All right. We got to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to say goodnight, and we're going to look at Nate's mouse pad forever.
Go Vikings.
Yeah. All right. Hang on, everyone. This is Dr. Homebrew. We're gonna return shortly. Hold on.
Hello, fellow BNers. This is Sully from the 21st Amendment Brewery located in San Francisco, just 2 blocks from Giants Park. Before Nico and I opened the 21A and before I was a professional brewer, I homebrewed on my small 4-burner apartment stove in a back house in Santa Monica, California, making my extract brews before graduating to the daunting idea of all-grain brewing. Homebrew books and information was hard to come by back then. The internet hadn't been invented yet, along with other things we take for granted today, like electricity and potable water. One thing I wish I had back then when I was learning was a radio show that could teach me the ins and outs of brewing and answer questions that I had about homebrewing, a resource for making great craft beer. The 21st Amendment Brewery is excited to be a proud sponsor of Dr. Homebrew, a great show that teaches you what you need to know about making incredible beer. Good stuff. Listen up, you might learn something. I certainly did. And thanks for your support. Tasty Crack Games.
The leader in affordable, high-quality kegerators is here. Introducing Komos, the kegerator designed with serious beer drinkers in mind. It features an all-stainless steel draft tower, a major upgrade over traditional chrome-plated brass towers, and Komos keeps your new tower cold with their air-cooled tower fan, wrapping your beer lines in frigid coolness. Your beer is poured from innovative forward-sealing faucets that don't leak, so they stay cleaner for longer. Dual gas inlets on the rear of the fridge allow you to run both CO2 and nitrogen gas. Serve your beer with CO2, serve your kegged wine, or even cocktails with nitrogen. The digital temperature display has the largest range available, allowing you to use the Komos Kegerator for fermentation if you need to. And now Komos Kegerators ship with duo-tight draft fittings for that click-to-connect assembly we've all dreamed of. Buy direct from KomosDraft.com and receive free shipping on your order. That's KOMOS Draft.com.
Now serving patient number 189. Number 189 at the counter, please.
Now back to Dr. Homebrew.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Thanks a lot for tuning in. I wanted to wrap up real fast. Thank you to Patrick and thank you to Nate for sending in beers. I really, really appreciate it. If you want to be on Dr. Homebrew, we definitely need a bunch of people like you, mainly homebrewers, to send in beers. So you email Brian at thebrewingnetwork.com. Send us your Brian with an I. Send us your beers. It doesn't matter when you want to be on the show. Just send us beers. We are most of us are fine with keeping a backlog. Most of us are organized. I am not, which is why Brian Cooper is my king in my country, and he keeps me organized, and I appreciate it because this show would not be going on as timely if it was not for Brian Cooper. I'm going to be honest. So thank you to Brian Cooper.
And at this point, we're a month late in recording this, so you know.
Well, no. At this point, we're 9 days late.
9 days late.
Yeah,
gotcha.
We can live with that.
You know, we don't really focus on them. Yeah, we don't really focus on that kind of stuff. Hi, Nate.
Back.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, it's all right. Anyway, so email Brian at thebrewingnetwork.com. Send us your beers. If you can't be on for like another month or two, that's fine. Anyway, whatever. We'll be in touch.
We'll take meads.
Do it.
We'll take ciders. Anything in the style guide.
You got to brag it. You got to look. You want to take? We should take wine. You just want to take a wine? Let's start doing wine. Fuck it. Send us your wine. Let's do a wine.
What the hell? Why not?
I know a master som, but he's in Puerto Rico, so I don't know. But we could definitely. Actually, I know a couple of wine people that would definitely help out judging this wine. So if you want wine, let's do it. Why not? Whatever.
Bottle your tiki drinks. Send us tiki drinks that you've bottled, and we will drink the shit out of those.
100%. Don't put shit in it. I don't want to
paper umbrellas.
Yeah, I don't want to drink shit out of it because if that means there's shit in it, and I don't like that. That's not my thing. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot for tuning in to Dr. Homebrew. I really appreciate it. And until next time, I don't know.
Stay safe.
Yeah, call your mom.
We're looking for a few good beers.
There you go.